ladies, if you find yourself consistently itchy down there and you consistently have the urge to scratch, and when you are scratching, it is sweeting you, now, there is a 95% chance that you got yeast infection. Welcome to another episode of The Real Issues. My name is Oluwatitufumi and it's nice to have you back. On today's episode of the show, we're going to be talking about yeast infection. And with me in the house to have this conversation today is Moyo Odukoya. Moyo Odukoya is a medical lab scientist. So it's nice to have you in the house.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, and I hope we have very nice time with this topic, this conversation.
Of course we will.
All right, let's dive in.
What is yeast infection?
Yeah, so I think that for the sake of people who are hearing this for the first time, because when I put it out and I said, our topic is yeast infection, some people were honestly asking the meaning of yeast infection.
All right, yeast infection is when there is an inflammation.
Okay.
I don't know if that's too big, but it's just an infection that is caused by yeast.
Okay.
That's, I think, simple enough. And yeast is a kind of fungi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so is the yeast infection is it only found in a particular part of the body?
Yeah, and actually the yeast, or let's say fungi generally, they are present in some of the parts of the body normally in a particular amount, or let's say quantity.
Okay.
So they can be found in on the skin sometimes, sometimes in the throat, and even in the gastrointestinal, the stomach. Let's use that word.
So it's not peculiar to
it's not
the vagina.
Yeah, and then the vagina also it can be found there too.
Okay,
also.
so if it's not like that is the only part.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's move to our next question. Yeah.
What are the common causes of yeast infection?
There are lots of factors that can predispose someone to yeast infection.
Okay.
But generally, I would say that anything that can affect the microbial flora, that's the normal organisms that should be in the vagina or any other part of the body, can predispose one to yeast infection. And such factors can vary or range from factors such as antibiotic use or misuse of antibiotics, and also immunosuppression, or when a person has a low immune system, the so-called way people say, or also other factors such as some illnesses or chronic illnesses such as diabetes, and then many other factors, including self-inoculation also. That's where, for example, maybe there is a kind of yeast or let me use the word candida infection somewhere in the body, or fungal infection somewhere in the body, and then a person picks it up from that part of the body and transports it to another part of the body. Even from we've recently heard about cases of even from things like money or other fomites. Fomites are surfaces where these things could be. So hand washing is very, very important. Yeah, and then I think majorly those are some of the factors that I can.
Okay, so the things like heat, pants, and all those things, does it cause yeast infection? Toilet, I mean, those are the common things we hear. How true is it? Does your toilet cause yeast infection? They say if you don't wear cotton pants, if you're wearing only nylon, and those of us that like wearing G-strings, does it cause yeast infection?
Like I said earlier, some factors can predispose someone to having a yeast infection. And if you would recollect, I also mentioned that some of these candida species are found normally in some of the parts of the body we are talking about. And like I said earlier, anything that can alter the state of that place. That there are lots of organisms there, especially lactobacillus, acidophilus, or let's say lactobacilli. Is a kind of bacteria anyway that keeps that place acidic. Normally, the pH of the vagina is about 4.5 thereabout.
Okay.
And keeping it in that kind of state keeps off harmful bacteria, and some other organisms. So anything that a person that a person maybe let's say heats, I don't know, anything that can make that place the flora distorted. You understand? That can disturb the normal way it should be. It can give rise to yeast infection.
All right.
Why do people have recurrent yeast infection?
Almost every woman in the lifetime of a woman, almost every woman will experience yeast infection.
Minus me.
About one. Okay. Actually, the thing is, in some cases, but sometimes it could really be bad, and the person will not even be aware until maybe when it gets to the later stage. You understand now? And then we have complicated and non-complicated cases. Okay. So when we have a recurrent or reoccurring yeast infection, then it can be categorized as a complicated case. Okay. But it could be due to several factors, such as even use of contraceptives. Yeah, anything that can distort the hormone, for example, estrogen now, even pregnancy, even chemotherapy, antibiotic use, and all those things can, over time, predispose someone who has had an history of yeast infection coming back. And also, there are some species of the Candida family that can be really become drug resistant. So in cases like that,
so they never go. So if once the person has it,
no, it will go. It's just that the course of treatment would need to be modified by someone who is a specialist, so to say, in quotes, in that area.
So what you are saying is that every female has probably had yeast infection. Would have had.
Would
have.
At one point in time in their lifetime have yeast infection.
Minus me.
Well, I wouldn't be able to say anything about that now.
All right, so let's take the next question.
How does a woman differentiate between yeast infection and bacterial infection?
Okay, so this question, I think is very important, because now I need to understand what's the difference between toilet disease, yeast infection, and bacterial infection. Because everything now is toilet disease. Once a woman is itchy, she'll say, "Oh, it's toilet disease," So how do we differentiate between toilet disease or whatever toilet disease is, then yeast infection and bacterial infection?
Okay, actually, let me debunk the myth about toilet infection.
Okay.
I don't believe there is anything like that.
If you use a dirty toilet and you start itching, is that not toilet infection?
Well, that's the layman's language or understanding of calling it toilet infection.
Okay.
But I really wouldn't say there is anything like that. Okay. If it does exist, it's due to a poor sanitary environment. Or poor sanitation.
Toilet.
Well. Okay, let's take your word as that. So that's on my own view about that. So let me differentiate now between bacterial infection and yeast infection. But there are lots of organisms, that are colonized, that live in the vagina.
Sorry. Say it again. There are lots of organisms that live in the vagina.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, but actually, some of the habits of ladies actually predispose them to this topic we're talking about, and other infections such as the bacterial infection that you're talking about. One is vaginosis. Okay. The other is vaginitis.
Okay, so one is the bacterial infection, that's vaginosis, yes. And the other is yeast infection, that is vaginitis.
Vaginitis generally is inflammation of the vagina.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, yeast infection comes with itching, and the bacterial infection doesn't.
I wouldn't say it doesn't, but usually when people have yeast infection, they itch. Not all the time, but it's synonymous with.
So how do somebody know, okay, it's bacterial infection I have?
Yeah, good. Depending on the kind of symptom or discharge that is coming out from that part of the body, those are the things that can suggest to confirm, that it's either yeast infection or bacterial infection.
So basically, if you start to feel funny down there, you should run a test
Yes.
so that you know if it's bacteria.
Yes.
So we don't have any common symptoms that can, So before I go to the hospital, I go.
Okay.
My ass.
Okay. The common symptom I can say is actually For example, in the case of yeast infection, there could be dryness in that part, the vagina, and then also there could be some kind of discharge that looks whitish, but like cottage cheese, so to say, or cod-like. And sometimes it could be creamy, and it could be dry sometimes, and sometimes it could be called like I said, just coming out like kind of cheese, sort of. But in the case of bacterial infection, that might not occur. It could just be the normal discharge turning yellow, or yellow, and getting maybe more slimy, or getting and then sometimes it is accompanied by a kind of fishy odor.
Okay. So I think that's like the major difference. That bacterial infection smells, and yeast infection doesn't necessarily.
No.
All right, let's take the next question.
Why does my boyfriend keep giving me yeast infection?
All right. So when I saw this question, it was really funny. I mean, it was really funny, but it's sexually transmitted, is it?
No.
Oh, okay. So why does she think that her boyfriend keeps giving her yeast infection?
Well, I would say that let me say that's like psychological. Yeah, because there is no scientific, no so much. I don't know, but I've not come across any scientific evidence or backing or basis for candidiasis or yeast infection being a sexually transmitted infection. It's not considered as such.
Okay, so just out of the blue, this question. So let's say it's a cheating boyfriend that goes to have sex with somebody else that has the yeast infection. Can't he come, and infect this other person?
Well, it's possible. It's not impossible, but it's not. It's possible occasionally. That's what I would say.
Okay.
Occasionally, because actually the way the anatomy of the male reproductive organ, one way or the other confers some kind of protection, so to say. Even when a man has unprotected intercourse with a woman who is actively who has candidiasis, you understand now, there is a low chance, or there are low chances of him getting infected. So when it's not infected, I don't know how we'll be able to transmit to someone else, except, so why I said in rare cases is, for example, now there could be an inoculation in case, due to hygiene or something, in case the organism has,
hanging
somewhere.
Okay.
Exactly. So, but it's not something that is common. It's not considered as an STI.
Does salt water relieve yeast infection?
Well, I just feel like people do very extreme things. Would I put salt in water and start using it to wash? Does it make sense? I don't know.
Okay.
Does it work?
I don't know so much about how effective that therapy is, but it has been there is this belief that it helps to relieve candidiasis or yeast infection. However, I think this is more applicable when it comes to the oral cavity, that's the mouth now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But people tend to how will I put it now? To replicate that process also to the genitals. But like I said, that area is different.
You shouldn't wash it with salt and water.
So like I said earlier, that area is a very sensitive area. that has a lot of organisms there that live normally. So things like that could even distort the state of the place normally, and even cause some other complications for the person, or maybe even predispose. Of course, it will not cure it. Let me just say that outrightly.
Okay.
The only known cure are antifungal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, salt water doesn't
No.
cure it. No. Next question.
People insert things like yoni pearls, garlic, and other things into their vagina. They claim it cleanses the vagina. How true is this?
So this question, yeah, I see a lot of these things on social media, especially the yoni pills. People sell all kinds of things, and they say, "Oh, insert it; it will cleanse the place. It makes it smell nice." You hear very strange things, and you see people buy it. They'll say put it inside. There's one I heard. She said she inserted it for 3 days. Then after 3 days, when she brought it out, the kind of things she saw, how can you insert something for 3 days, sister? You're dead. Anyway, that's by the way. But you hear the very strange ones like garlic. I can't imagine inserting garlic, but people do it. How effective is it? Does there anything like cleansing? And you hear vagina cleansing. You hear a lot of this on social media. How true is it?
Thank you very much for that question, and I'm glad I am able to talk about this on this platform, and I believe it's going to be very educative to those that are watching. I really am not so much conversant with all these other things that you just mentioned. Yeah, even though they really exist, but the truth is that the vagina is colonized by a lot of beautiful organisms.
Beautiful.
And there is a reason they are there.
Okay.
It's for a particular reason, for a particular function. And I mentioned one of them earlier, which is actually the major function, and that's the predominant organism that is there, the lactobacilli that I mentioned earlier. However, there are other organisms there. So when people indulge in habits such as douching, that's like scrubbing, and the vagina is not a drainage pipe or gutter or something like that is very dirty like people think it is. So when people talk about cleansing, you get worried about what they are cleaning, or what is dirty, or what really needs to be cleansed. Actually, and when you talk about odor, where odor is different from I don't know, maybe fragrance or any other thing, but there is this kind of, I wouldn't be able to explain it now, but every woman should be able to understand and identify the characteristic, smell that comes out.
Vagina.
From that place. So if anything is different, then you will be able to identify. So ordinarily, there wouldn't be need for you to insert anything like those substances you mentioned in the place. So
I've even heard of alum. They put alum. They use alum water to wash.
Wow,
they say no. That one I hear is for tightening. This is out of place.
I'm not aware of how that works. If I'm really aware, I will be able to explain better. But I'm not aware of how it works.
Okay, so what you're saying is the vagina is self-cleansing, and we don't need to use all those things.
No. That's why I mentioned that the predominant organism there keeps it at a particular pH.
Okay.
That's it sustains a particular environment that becomes hostile for harmful organisms to thrive.
And so once there is a harmful organism, then there's a problem and you need treatment.
Yeah.
So you don't need garlic, lemon, alum, yoni pills, none of that.
No.
Stay away from it.
How do you differentiate between a healthy vaginal discharge and yeast infection discharge?
Okay, so I think we've answered this already, but let's just go over it again.
Okay. There is a healthy vaginal discharge, truly, and it's transparent, so to say, to something like a kind of a whitish, not exactly white, but tending towards whitish kind of color, and that's a particular texture that is not slimy, that is not entirely slimy, not entirely watery. You understand now, and it varies um, across the menstrual cycle of a woman. It varies. During those periods of the menstrual cycle of a woman, especially when a woman is ovulating, the discharge tends to come out more that period.
Okay.
So every lady should be able to identify that also. So when it begins to get colored,
Okay.
now, like maybe whether it's brownish or it's greenish
Okay.
or it's more slimy and maybe looking yellowish
Okay.
than before, or when it looks whitish like cheese now, like I mentioned earlier, or cod-like, then there could be a problem.
Okay.
And the person should go for a test.
Sure.
What is the right and most effective management for yeast infection?
I know we've talked about it over and over again, but for emphasis sake.
Okay, the right management. When a lady observes abnormal vaginal discharge, the person should go for test.
Okay.
So when testing is carried out or investigation is carried out, then you'll be able to identify what is going on, and then proper treatment will be administered. For yeast infection, antifungal drugs will be administered under professional healthcare guidance. I wouldn't want to go into technical details.
Okay, but basically, the most effective treatment is getting medical help, and not choking garlic, ginger, lime, salt water, alum, yoni pill.
No.
All right.
Is yeast infection an STI?
All right, so this question, I have a personal experience, with this question. When I went to camp, my first time in camp, I was feeling funny, and so I called a doctor friend and said, "Oh, I feel a particular kind of way," and I think he told me to get antibiotics. Then I got the antibiotics, and 2 days later, I started feeling worse. I started feeling worse, and so I go to camp clinic. And then I see the medical director and I say, "Hello, sir, there's a problem." And it was so difficult for me to talk about it because it was embarrassing. I thought maybe it was the toilet, camp, it was a new environment and all. So he said, "What is it?" So I went close there and now whispered into his ear. The next question he asked me was, "When last did you have unprotected sex?" And I'm like, how does that, how does it correlate? I say, it's crashing me. You're telling me when I'm going to say, "Excuse me, sir, I think I have yeast infection," and you're telling me, "When last did you have unprotected sex?" And I just couldn't see the correlation. And thank God he just got me a cream and I felt better. So is it an STD?
No. Let me just say that first. Actually, I thought you said except you initially when I said. So anyways, on a lighter, you mentioned something, and it's. I think you're getting to understand better, or those watching will understand better what I meant when I said prolonged use of antibiotics can even worsen the situation. So what happened was there was a fungal infection, and the individual was busy treating a bacterial infection and even worsening the situation because the person was reducing the population of the bacteria.
I think I read when I googled it, they said because it's the two bacteria and fungi are supposed to be balanced.
Yes, exactly.
Then when one now starts to die, the other one starts to overgrow.
Exactly.
So I think because I was using antibiotics, it killed the bacteria around it and made the yeast infection worse.
Exactly. So that was just actually what happened there. So basically, it's not an STI. It's just that in the management, like you mentioned about underwear the other time, it will be good for a woman who has had or who is experiencing recurrent yeast infection to at some point maybe have to change the underwears. And like I said, that's due to the kind of species of candida that we're talking about. We are beginning to have some that are really stubborn. So that's why that might be needed. But not in all candidiasis or what did you call it, yeast infection, that you need to change your underwears. I'm only saying stubborn situations like that might be needed.
Because I had another experience, not me. This one was, I think it was my friend, while I was in school. She was also itchy, and she went to the clinic, and the nurse was asking her nonsense question. When Lajab said, a girl cannot just have yeast infection in peace, right? And then we asking stupid questions, right? And thank God you have heard it is not an STD.
No.
All right, any closing words for us on yeast infection?
Well, what I would say is, ladies are a very beautiful and a wonderful creature of God.
Yes.
And I just want everybody to know that your body system is specially made, and you have to be careful about what you do to yourself. You have to be nice to yourself and not treat yourself as dirty. You are very, very clean. God made you that way.
You'll be washing it as if no, it's
so that's my parting word for you. And in case you have any funny feeling or anything unusual, seek medical help and not take laws into your hands.
Those Instagram sellers are the worst. They sell all these things, and they will tell you cleanse the vagina. I heard one cleanses the womb.
Wow, that's serious. So I don't know about the womb cleanser or anything, but medically all these things will be investigated and will be confirmed, and then the right approach for management will be applied. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
I had a very wonderful time.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. We hope that you come again.
Of course, I'll be glad to.
All right, guys, thank you very much for joining. It's been a pleasure to have you. I hope you've had fun. I did last week, and I am having more fun this week. I hope you join me same time next week. Bye, guys. Hi. Did you learn something new today? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell to get more of these amazing videos. See you soon.